Hey, Shug, I love my pets. I love my kid. I love my wife. But you know what I love the most?
I bet you I can guess.
I fucking love virtual reality.
Huh. That's not what I would have gone with. Anyways, guys, I'm Chris from Shughead Gaming. Had to think about that for a second. It's Ryan from the VR Grid. Yeah, amateur hour is exactly right. And we are Virtual Boys. I think this is our third episode now.
So,
Yeah. And today, guys, we're going to be talking about why we fucking love VR. Because this is the R-rated version of the VR world. And we're edgy. That's what Ryan says. We're edgy. Um, and yeah, guys, we wanted to take you through some of our first experiences and kind of where we think VR is at, where it's going. And yeah, we just want to share our love, start the year off with a really positive video. Thanks for joining us, guys. And don't forget, if you want to watch or listen, rather, to this show, not on YouTube. We have it on all the major podcast networks, so check out Virtual Boys on there. We will be uploading all those episodes at the same time, roughly at least, that they hit YouTube. So don't forget to follow us on there. Might be a little bit easier for your schedules to just listen to us yabber on, because we've got lots of important things to say. On that note,
yes, we do.
On that note, Ryan, why don't you kick things off?
All right. So, my earliest memories of virtual reality. I mean, I was a kid. I was born in the early '80s, and VR was always in movies and stuff, but it was never done not to what we know now. But it was always like this kind of mystical thing, like VR. And I remember the first time kind of being introduced to VR was early '90s. I want to say I went to called Klondike Days, my a local festival that comes through every year. And I'm sure Shug, you know that.
Yeah.
Anyways, there was a big virtual reality booth, and there's a huge, massive lineup, and you basically got in this huge circular pod thing, and they lowered this massive headset. I swear to God, no joke, it was I don't know, 3 times the size of your head around your head. It was just a monstrosity. At least that's how I remember it. And they put you in this weird little super geometric shaped thing where you played as a pterodactyl looking dudes, and I think you had to shoot or kill guys that swung at you. I wasn't allowed to wait in line because I had my parents with me. They didn't want to wait for that. But I remember seeing that, just thinking what would that be like? What would it be like to be in the game? That'd be I just I'm thinking Captain Power here, and just oh my God, how could this possibly be any cooler? And right around that time too would be the Virtual Boy, which is this is it. We got VR. It's in our headsets, and I never had a Virtual Boy, but my buddy did, and so I went over to play Virtual Boy, and that sucked. That was
Yeah,
it was kind of cool to have that depth. But your face was stuck to this headset mounted on a table, so you weren't it wasn't stuck to your head, and it was just red, green, red and black, glaring back at you. And the games were pretty mediocre. It was basically the 3D version of films.
I was gonna
in
say
game mode.
It's the 3D boy brought to you by the color red.
Yeah, and that thing died a very quick death. 27 games, something like that.
Oh, I did a year tops, I think.
And it was gone. And I think it could have did better, but it's just there was too much going against it. There was no games, no one wanted to develop for it, no sales. So, and then after that, really, I don't remember VR being a thing until The Matrix. That was kind of the whole my God. Imagine if there was a reality inside, our reality. This is insane. And I think that's where I kind of got I didn't know it then, but that's where I kind of got the love for VR. Would have been probably the Matrix. Existenz was another one that came out the same year, where just this idea of this whole other world inside that was still a game. You could still gamify it, and I'll touch upon 2016 when we get to that point. But those to me are kind of the defining moments. You can talk about Lawnmower Man, so the other
that always gets
trash,
mentioned.
but,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not good. I did a review for it for my other one there, and it's aged horribly. It's fun to watch. Rockstar actually made the video footage for that before they were Rockstar, which is crazy.
Wow. I didn't know they went that far
Side
back.
note, yeah, there was some other video development studio thing. Anyways, yeah, so VR kind of was it was this thing it was always on the outskirts of everything I do as far as games and technology and viewing stuff. It was there, but it was like in the ether. Like you could never touch it, but you wanted to. And then obviously 2016. But like I said, we'll talk about that. Shug, what about you? What are your like earliest memories of like VR, and
Well,
what do you remember?
I've been sitting here thinking about this the entire time you've been talking, and I always hear people in in whatever it might be, Reddit, Discord, Facebooks, and you always hear people talking about like the one of the highest demographics number wise of VR adopters is our age group. That's like your mid 30s, with people, guys with money who grew up in the 80s, and a lot of us, we often hear our peers saying things like, well, we were promised this, like that's why we wanted it, like we grew up with like that, this being told that we were gonna, like, this was gonna be the future. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, I don't really have I can't think of a single thing where I was like, where I watched a movie of someone actually putting on a virtual headset and then going in and then being in a fake reality. But when I think of, but when I so what I think of is of early fantasies of living in or playing or whatever in VR. It's where my nerd starts to come out. Matrix would definitely be one of them, but it's not what I think of. What I immediately think of is the holodeck in Star Trek.
It's a good one.
And I remember like watching Star Trek: The Next Generation when like it first came out in like '88 or '89, and just being like, and it opened, that the pilot episode opened with a holodeck, and it was just like that's what I want. And that's still like, holy crap, I want that. In the 80s we saw movies like Tron. That would probably be one of those ones that I think that literally was living in a video game.
I hated Tron.
I liked the second one, actually.
I love the second one. As a child,
the first one's hard to go.
I hated it, and it's so hard to go back to now. Anyway,
well, the first one, even when I was a kid, was quite existential. Like, I don't know, I found it hard to get into it. But regardless, I think that is like, those are memories that I think of like living in a video game world, and being a gamer since I got an NES in 1985. Being a gamer has always been a massive part of my life, and so this idea of living inside your game was like mind blowing, to the point of almost like when it started to become a reality. Like all of a sudden, when like it seems to me that the days of like the early DK models, I think, of the Oculus, and then going and actually being released commercially, to me seemed like it happened very quickly. Yeah. Even though I know that like we've seen the versions of these old headsets being just duct taped together basically back in the day, and just massive contraptions as they were playing with this. And there are VR headsets. I remember that one bulky one in the 90s that we used to see, like, and that it had the big power cord out the back and everything. Oh, yeah. It existed, but it didn't actually really interest me because I wanted that holodeck. That was what I imagined as. And I remember, like when Oculus was first starting to become a thing, I was like, well, that's cool, but I wasn't going to buy a gaming PC, so it still didn't even, I was like, I don't want to hear about it. And it wasn't there yet, because all we ever saw was like roller coasters and really early VR stuff, like the Pong of VR. But it was when Sony actually announced that they were going to be releasing the PlayStation VR. And of course, there's the Virtual Boy. And I think the Virtual Boy did probably more damage for VR than anything else, because it was very gimmicky. It wasn't VR at all, really. And it tanked. And so all these things kind of like, that was the first commercial step into VR. And then so when the PlayStation VR was actually announced by Sony, I remember just going, like, are you kidding me? I was like, immediately, I was like, I'm in. When can I don't even care what the games are. I want it. And that brings us up to 2016, because there was probably only about a year of hype leading into the actual release of the PSVR. Because as a lot of people know, it wasn't even originally going to be released. It was more of just a prototype that they were like, wow, this is actually really good. And they released it.
Yeah, so 2016, like you said, I don't remember the build up to VR in 2016. I remember kind of being aware of it only months beforehand, and like you said at the time, I had a gaming PC, but it was so old, I wasn't going to invest in a new one. And so I remember with my Galaxy S7, S8, somewhere in there. If I went to go buy it from Best Buy, I got a free Gear VR headset. And I was like, well, this is as close as I'm getting to VR. And I remember getting my phone and coming home, and I was more hyped about VR than I was for the phone, because by that time I think the Vive was already out and the Rift were already out, and I was already hearing all the buzz, just how cool this thing was and how not cool it was. But that's beside the point. That's launch issues. And so I put the Gear VR on, right? And I picked the first thing that I recognized. And it was the Insurgent series, or Divergent, that trilogy series that for teens. We were just watching it recently with my wife, so I was like, okay, I recognize that. I'm putting it on. So I put that, loaded up, and all it was like a 360 video, I think, at least as far as I saw. But I was inside this ship, and I'm looking around at the inside of this ship, and it's rendered in 3D. And these two actors from the movie come out and start having a conversation. I have no idea what they said. I was just like so in awe, where I turn around and I can see behind me. I was like instantly, right then and there, I knew this was the future. This was going to be a passion of mine. And it didn't take too long before I had started a website for mobile games that didn't go anywhere. And I was like, I can't stop. I need to produce. People need to know about VR. We're here. This is what the movies have been talking about. It's here, or at least we're on the cusp of it. And now it's worth talking about now. And like you said, we both skipped out on PC when it launched, but I believe we both picked up. Did you get PSVR right away at launch?
Yeah, I mean, later on, I think I wanted to take a bit of a deep dive onto kind of our own journeys through VR.
Okay.
But I think that, like, you kind of hinted at the fact that, or not hinted, but you kind of started to dip your toe into those early experiences, which is kind of what I wanted to focus on here. But I was struggling to. I'm like, I don't remember. Did Gear VR predate the PlayStation VR?
By 6 months.
Okay, so it was around the same. Because I remember having a Google Cardboard too, and I think that came out. I think that came out just before the PSVR, and like I'd already pre-ordered the PSVR, but then the Google Cardboard came out, and I remember trying it. And again, it's one of those things where did it hurt? Well, that's the thing. Did it hurt VR more than it helped it? I think it probably did. But it really was the Gear VR, basically, just in cardboard form, because it was the exact same.
There's things were developed specifically for Gear through Oculus, so there was just better quality stuff.
Totally, but it was very similar in the fact that you didn't have controllers. There was no, 6 degrees of movement in there, so it was kind of like very much like looking around things, like you said. But I remember I watched it's like Paul McCartney, I think, performing on stage, and it was pretty rough. The resolution is pretty shitty, but I remember just going like, holy crap, there's the audience, there's the stage, there was some 3D depth. It was pretty crazy. But I remember the lead into the PSVR and watching some of the games that were shown at E3 before the release and stuff, and I remember just going like, I remember thinking Rush of Blood looked like a piece of shit, and it ended up and it still stands as one of as an amazing VR title, and one of like the best first VR titles to put people into, because it was like, I remember jumping into it, and it was like the quality was it was really well made, and it was like roller coaster, haunted house, and a shooter all in one game, and it did all of them well. It was like an amazing theme park ride. It was better than anything that I think had ever been in a mall or a theme park as a launch title. And I remember launch day, like I had everything basically, which is, I have a problem, and that's usually how it goes. And I had like Eve Valkyrie and Brookhaven and Gunjack and Drive Club and VR Worlds, obviously. Rush of Blood, Rigs,
demo disc. Don't forget the demo disc.
I said VR Worlds.
No, the actual demo disc that you got. You got to sample Super Hot and Job Simulator. I went through all that. The first day I had that thing, maybe. I was going through every single demo. The demo for Drive Club, the one stage that was just super blurry.
Oh, okay, yeah. I don't think I actually played much of that, because I just bought all those games.
Oh, look at you, Muddy Bed.
No, I didn't mean it like that. I'm like, I have a problem. It wasn't like a good thing. It's not like there was no food on the table for a week. But like, no, I don't remember Super Hot on there, but it wasn't it?
Could be wrong. No, I think it was on the second one.
Anyways,
it doesn't matter.
Regardless, what sticks with me was the ones I owned, the full size games.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, when I think of all of that, I would say three things that jumped out at me the most. It was that first day. I was lucky not to have any real motion sickness. I remember my brain being very tired though. My eyes being. I went and had a nap after. It was just so much. Um, so I can only imagine what it must have been like for people who struggled with the VR issues. But I remember the ocean descent, which like the shark attack, which is still amazing today.
Yeah.
That shark still looks freaking amazing. I remember being in a car in Drive Club, like regardless of what the world looked like. I remember being in the cockpit, going, "Holy crap, that looks like leather. I'm in this car." Like the cockpits were amazing. They still look great and they were sharp. And that was mind blowing. I was like, "Oh my god!" Like the car had size to it for the first time ever.
Dude, I've never been a driving game guy in my entire life. I never enjoyed driving games. And the second I played the demo for Drive Club, I was like, this is amazing. And I think I went and bought the game like that day or the next day because I was like, I love driving games now. In VR, I can't, we'll get to it, but VR has ruined genres for me
Oh,
because
totally.
it's just, man, like you're playing, any racing game flat. I'm just like, man, you're not doing this right at all. On a TV, morons.
And that's the next thing I definitely want to get into about kind of what VR brings to gaming, especially for those of you who haven't experienced it. But yeah, that Drive Club experience. I remember going through a corner in a Caterham, which is like a topless roadster, and I remember like drifting through a corner and like looking into the corner and just being like, ah, and like and just like the road all around you, and then like looking backwards and seeing like the car like back end kicking out. It was just like, sticking your head out the side of the windows and stuff. It's just like, it was that moment where I was like, fuck flat gaming forever. And in fact, that could be the title of of this video. But yeah, those were those early experiences. And then I think the last thing I'll mention, then I'll shut up, would be Eve Valkyrie, and that still stands out. Like I did a video, my holy shit moments in VR, and that was like the first. That was like literally that is the moment that made me want to make that video, because I still stuck out of like, and I'm a Battlestar Galactica fan, so you're sitting in your ship, aka a Viper, and and the lights start coming on, and then you shoot out of that hangar deck, and then all of a sudden it's just, and it does that too, where it's like loud, and then you hit space and it's quiet. And then you hear like the crackle of your commander telling you to get in line. You're like looking around this whole ship, and you can see just the wings and the boosters, and you look up and like space is all around you, and that size of the scale of being in this little ship in this massive world. And they were so smart with it because there were huge asteroids, which you and I were talking about. Asteroids were so mind blowing, but they had like huge capital ships around you, and it was just like I was like just like holy shit. And it was one, and I think it was probably, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was probably the only like PC VR game I think we had at launch.
That sounds right.
And it was done, and it was like done well.
Yeah, it looked good. I mean, it definitely looked. Like I said, I remember the same thing. I remember, like I said, launching out of that tube and then just being in space, and I didn't know what the hell my mission was. I was just taking it like, oh my god, I'm in a cockpit in space, and it's around me. Like it's you can't describe VR to someone who's never been in VR, and anyone who's ever bashed VR, has never been in VR properly.
Properly, that's the big thing. Yep.
No, there's some awful experiences which we'll get into in a different podcast. But you find those gems, the showcase titles on any headset. I don't Gear VR. There are some showcase titles in there that will make your jaw drop. And obviously, there's better experiences on the bigger headsets. But yeah, that launch, like I said, that I spent the whole day. I booked it off of work. I didn't even have it pre-ordered. I just went to Walmart. I was there right when the doors opened. I'm like, I'm looking for those. They're still loading them out of this big giant crate. I'm like, well, that. Is this all you have? All right, this is what I'm taking. I think I spent, I don't know, $1,000 Canadian, so it's like $2 American. But and that was just, like I said, it became my obsession. And like I said, not just for doing, all this wonderful little content creator stuff that we do, but I love it. I've played 4 or 5 flat games like for myself in the last 4+ years. Like VR has consumed me, and I have no problem with that. I'm not like, oh man, I'm missing out on Ghost of Tsushima. I know I am. I just don't care because I got Saints and Sinners, I got Half-Life Alyx, I have all these other games that just kind of fill in that void where I don't need to play everything. Not to mention in 2020, it's impossible to play everything anyways. But yeah, no, like I'm obsessed. I'm still obsessed. That's why we started a podcast, for God's sakes. I can't get enough VR, Shug.
Well,
Can't.
And I want to go back. I want to touch on that Tsushima thing, because I think that's a really important point as we move into kind of like what VR brings to gaming. There's something really important there, I think. But just going back to that VR passion, for me, the reason I started the channel was I had my buddies just wouldn't pull the trigger. It was often a financial thing, and they maybe just weren't as big into gaming, or they had kids and their wife wasn't on board with it. There were a lot of reasons. They were all super interested in it, but no one wanted to like get into it the way I did. And I wanted to go find people. That's why I started the channel, mainly because it was like I wanted to find my Ryan. Like seriously, but I mean it. Like I want to go. Like, this is a passion of mine. I really enjoy this. I'm not finding that community. It's getting more broad now, right? But a lot of it there was two things. It was, one, I want to go find people, which is funny because I'm so antisocial as a gamer.
Same.
But I still loved the community and participating in the Facebook groups around the PSVR and as it's moved into Quest and PC and such. But I enjoy that community of and it seems to be a really good group of people. It doesn't seem to be all types of people. It definitely seems to attract the dreamers. It attracts your sci-fi nerds. It seems to attract people that deal with like depression stuff. So I found a lot of like-minded people because we're all looking for escapism in some way. So I think those are things that touches on. But circling back to what you said about Tsushima, I think that's a huge thing because I mean I do play flat games because there's still some fun experiences there, and I do like being able to just be a complete puddle of laziness on the couch. And being able, like, I'm not a PC gamer, not at heart, and I love just lazing on the couch and playing and getting into something. But I have found it very difficult because Tsushima, as my jumping off point, is there's a real lack of innovation in flat gaming these days. Like, obviously you can find it, but really, let's look at the biggest, off the top of my head. I mean, Cyberpunk, obviously, Tsushima, Days Gone, Assassin's Creed, lots of open world games. Your Final Fantasy VII remake. So there's a lot of remakes, Resident Evil remakes. That's never a good sign when you're just remaking titles. It just feels like it's just another open world game, and I love open world games, but they're not. Assassin's Creed, like, it's the same frickin' game, but now you're a Viking. And Ghost of Tsushima is just another Assassin's Creed, but it's got a good combat system. I loved the Dark Souls series, but now it's just another Souls game, and they're all the same template, and it's just rinse and repeat with a lot of flat gaming.
And I agree. I kind of forgot about that too. But at the time in 2016, I don't think I realized it then, but I definitely had game fatigue. Where, like you said, It's Assassin's Creed 5. We're playing Elder Scrolls. I love Elder Scrolls. Elder Scrolls 5 as well. Call of Duty every year. All these sports. Everything was feeling very samey. So, and that's part of the reasons I was going to cover in a bit. But it's kind of like, it feels like the Wild West of gaming again, where like you don't know, like even if a VR experience is terrible, I still look forward to seeing what this dev team want to put in front of our faces. Like,
because they're all trying things. It's forging new ways.
Dude, there's innovation in some of the worst games I've ever played in VR, but it's there because everything's doing it. Things that worked for the last 20 years on a gaming console or PC just don't work in VR, whereas things that just weren't possible before are now possible. And I love it. I love every game I play. I can't. What's it going to give me? And maybe it's something I've played before now because now we're 4 years deep. But there's still when you find those mind blowing VR moments, it's just like, oh yeah. And like I said, I can't remember the last time flat gaming where I was just like, oh man. I mean, I remember looking at the rocks in Uncharted 4 and be like, man, that was just some damn finely rendered rocks. But it wasn't like I was like, oh man, the gunplay is awesome, the climbing is awesome. I've done this in the last.
It was Uncharted 2. It was Uncharted 3 with a different storyline. It was very little difference.
And for the record, I'm currently 3/4 of the way through Uncharted 4. It was my goal was to beat it this Christmas. So I still play flat games here and there. I beat Last of Us 2, the entire game earlier in the month. So I do, but I dabble in the stuff I care about. But VR's coming made me realize just how much I don't care about non-VR titles. Like the next game I'm looking forward to, honestly, is like the next Elder Scrolls game. I think I know everyone's like all up on Cyberpunks, but I just it's got a crazy level, character creation system. I'd rather have a janky character creation system and have that, a crappy version be in VR. And I know, I'm definitely maybe more of an exception than others for sure. I don't, there's still people that happily do both, but for myself, I just it's gotta be something monumental outside of VR to pull me into it. Otherwise, I'd rather play some janky indie VR title and see what it might surprise me with.
And I still play a lot of flat games. I do. Like I said, because sometimes I'm just freaking lazy, or I sit in bed with my Switch, because I just want that, just like completely like, I don't know, smaller moment of gaming that's just sometimes feels good after doing the channel or playing a big game on the TV or something. But I do play flat games probably because I can't help it. It's automatic. I'm like, ooh, new game, bye. And then I play it a little bit, and I don't play it anymore. I'm playing Valhalla. I like it, but it's still very been there, done that. I guess I'm a sucker for playing flat games still, because I still don't. I'm always afraid I'm going to miss out on something, or I want to feel like I'm up to date. One of my biggest pet peeves is VR gamers, if they're reviewing or if they're commenting on VR and they don't play flat games. Like, at least you do play flat games,
Look, I still play Switch stuff with my kid. I do dabble.
But you dabble, and so you don't really fit my category. But there are certain people that I will not name that like literally like don't play flat gaming for the most part, or they stick to only one kind of. I won't get into it too much, but they get their blinders on the thing that they like, either in the VR world or in gaming period. And I feel like I don't want to be that guy who's like, holy crap, this VR game just changed the game. They've got this amazing inventory system, and it's like, yeah, dude, like this game did that 2 years ago. What? I don't want to be that guy. So I like to stay on top of it, I guess, and like, I'm just lazy. But I think like you said, that innovation thing is just, it's just huge. And yeah, there's been a lot of mistakes, and it kind of ties into what we were talking about in our last video. It's frustrating when lessons have been learned and a better way has been found, and a big developer just like didn't pay attention and does the same mistakes. Those are frustrating. But what's amazing, I think, about VR, whether it be an indie title or a big AAA, is like, seriously, can you think of any flat game experience where it was like, we just patched in multiplayer? We just added an entire third of the game. We just completely redid the visuals. Like that Wild West of like feeling like you're along for the development ride. Like everything's early access. You don't even need to say it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, games that have a full release. I mean, not to say it's kind of it's now a gaming trope where every game gets patched after launch, anyways. But with VR, like I said, they're patching in. Depending on the game, they're patching in huge things, and part of it's from community feedback where they're like, "Oh, really? Like people want this? Okay, we can do that." And like you said, other times they're just patching in entirely new modes. Like we get, as far as I can tell with VR, and maybe this is me just not having my pulse on non-VR gaming, we get more free DLC and more like expansions and for VR content than other bigger titles do out of VR.
You could count on one hand what game has actually done microtransactions.
Yeah, Walking Dead has new DLC coming in January, I believe. Saints and Sinners. As far as I know, that's
it's only for Quest. It's Quest that's getting it.
Yeah, for now, it'll.
No. I mean, we already have it. The DLC they're getting is that Horde mode trials thing.
Oh, I thought it was a new one.
I don't think so. No, because it's not on there right now.
For that. Yeah. But yeah, so many games do get these just massive content updates in VR, and like for the most part, they're free. They're very, very few games charge a lot for DLC, and even the ones that do, I can't remember any game really gouging and it feels good. And this can also tie into the fact that even like multiplayer experiences, there's no kids online, man, unless you're playing Rec Room. Like every time I go online, it's starting to see it now, I guess, but there's still like you find people like similar age and likes, like they're playing VR, whether it's cross platform on a PC or just playing another PSVR or PSVR. Like you find like-minded people, like, and like I'm talking like age group and everything else, and maybe that's kind of, it's definitely like I said the appeal of this to our demographic, which is still like 20 to 30, right? That's how old we are, but but it's awesome. It's so cool. I was playing Call of Duty, the last one, the Warzone, whatever it was. There, I was playing the battle royale modes and stuff like that for a while with my friends. I give up, man. I mean, one, you play multiplayer, kids who just and like just the brutal racism. And I know it's just people,
and they're working you. Let's be honest.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, I don't have the time to play these games and get good, so I don't. But it's just VR is so small and so niche still, and it's not small and niche, but it is compared to any other part of this industry. It's still kind of safe as well, if that makes sense.
I just want to jump off of that. I think one of the things that's safe from, well, first of all, the idea of kids getting in there, that is changing.
I know,
and I think you're going to see a drastic change from this Christmas because, like the adoption of, especially the Quest 2 this year, I've heard is outpacing next gen consoles, mainly because of an availability thing.
Yeah,
but still, and I think also the time we're living in right now, VR is being, and that's something we can talk about a little bit as well, but VR is being pushed to the forefront out of necessity because of the isolation that a lot of people are dealing with, right? But the safe thing, what I was thinking of when you were talking there is when it comes to the developers and publishers, VR is still niche enough, even though it's definitely starting to move out of that it's not, you don't make a VR game, you don't publish a VR game to get filthy rich. Because the money there, you're lucky if you break even. There's very few developers that are actually turning a real profit off of it.
They're out there.
There definitely are some of them out there, and in some devs you might not, some games you may not actually expect it from, but it's not. It's right now. It's not. You don't get.
Shout out to you, Drunken Bar Fight.
Yeah, there you go. You don't get in there. You don't get in there to get rich, and I think that has made this, like you said, a safe place. It's made it a more friendly environment because any developer or publisher that's getting into VR for the most part right now it's a passion project. They want to be in VR. It's often guys that are living in VR. We're seeing amazing games coming from one guy, two guys. I think of like Honor and Duty from Strange Games, or
I love Separation, which was one guy.
What was that other title? It was it's on the tip of my tongue. The Superman game, where you were like, it was like
Airborne.
Nope, not air. Nothing in the word air. I want to say it was like Mega.
Oh, Megaton Rainfall.
Thank you.
I was thinking of a different game, but yeah, no, I still one of my favorite games in VR.
And there's a few ways that game outdid Iron Man. Only a few though, but still, I'm just saying, like, it had some ambitions, like flying out of the planet, leaving the galaxy, leaving the universe. Like, it's freaking crazy.
It's nuts.
But I mean, that was one dude with a passion, and you're seeing that a lot. But you're seeing it from bigger publishers too. Like Ubisoft is a perfect example. Like, I don't think they expected to light the world on fire with Space Junkies. Yet there was a lot of effort and time. That game is still, I think, stands
polished.
as an amazing game.
So polished. There's never. It's so good.
And it's like it's this gem of VR where it's like, hey guys, like someone made like a 0G Unreal Tournament that is fucking awesome.
No, they messed up their launch and stuff, which sucks because it was only 2v2 at launch, which was always, that's 3v3 is honestly a game changer. I remember I think we played that patch together.
Yeah.
And going from 2v2 to 3v3 was just like, this is so much better. This is like infinitely better.
I mean, Ubisoft has a reputation, even in the flat world, of sticking with games, whether it be their Ghost Recon series or that For Honor. Yeah. Like, both those games got patched until they were awesome, basically. They kept fixing it and fixing it and fixing it. Rainbow Six Siege is another example of a game where they just continued to develop it. Anyways, that's getting off topic, but that was an example of a VR title that got that kind of love too. And you see that that's not a rarity, and it is in flat gaming, where
Yeah,
developers stick with a game until it's right.
yeah, no, it's great. I mean, I think you kind of made that point there. It's just you don't see it in flat gaming, and it adds to that excitement. It adds to this stuff where these developers release a game with a track record or with a plan to release more stuff. Swordsman VR, I guess, is kind of a more recent example. They released their game. It's a perfectly fine game on its own. But right after they released the game, they released their roadmap of things they're releasing, and they added a horde mode. They had new modes, new weapons. Like that game, they added Santa Claus mode for God. You get to fight Santa Claus in that game, and they just keep spitting out DLC, and you straight up don't see updates like that to any non VR game.
Gun Club VR, Gun Club VR. It's like 2 years later, and they patched in full locomotion
SWAT.
and stuff. Yeah.
They just put that SWAT mode. I was like, where did this come from?
So
like,
value for money is crazy. And I guess, yeah, that's just, I mean, so that was, that's something very unique to, that those experiences are very unique to VR, I think, because it's all indie basically, and that's really what it comes down to. Is I'm sure that if we were playing a lot of indie flat games, those experiences would be similar, but this is an indie scene that's trying to play in the big boy leagues, so it makes it slightly unique. It's trying to be cutting edge. It's not trying to do like retro gaming, which a lot of indie titles do. Like it's a little different because they're reaching for the skies, which makes it so awesome to see them attempt it and sometimes succeed. And so and that brings me back to like what VR brings to gaming, is that like one of my biggest pet peeves has always been the VR gaming is gimmicky and it's gonna die. And I don't know how many times I've defended it in videos and in forums going, okay, 3D TVs, it always gets compared to that. And it's like, okay, I'm like, I understand where they're going with that. I'm like, you're living inside your video game. That's never going to not be freaking insane. That's not going to go away. That's not going to be a fad.
Dude, I can liken that back to Skyrim. If I could tell my younger self to not play Skyrim when that launched, and like, dude, just wait until 2017. It's gonna be a mind blowing. I mean, I played Skyrim. I literally played that game. I did everything, even like I found every Easter egg, every little side quest, even quests that weren't even counted by the game. I did everything in that game. And going back into VR, I wish I could go back in time and tell my younger self, don't, buddy. Trust me, 7 years, you're gonna love it. And
yeah,
like you said, you're living in that game, and there's not enough of those right now. Like Fallout 4 is also one that got the full VR treatment from an older title.
No Man's
not much
Sky.
older. No Man's Sky, thank you very much. They're out there. There's definitely a few that have gotten the VR patch or even the VR upgrade. Less so as far as like Gungrave. There's a few. Or no, what's the Kojima title? You're in the mechs.
Yeah. Zone of the Enders.
Zone of the Enders. That got a whole VR upgrade for PSVR. I think it's on PC as well.
I think when you're looking though at those certain games that you were talking about there with like Skyrim and No Man's Sky and the other than the one that you brought up, but those are like Fallout.
Fallout, yeah.
Those are big games. Like those are giant open world games, which jumps into all of VR's weaknesses, which is like draw distance. And then just being power hungry, because for those of you who don't know, that when you're playing in VR, it requires the system to render everything twice, because that's how you get the 3D image and pump out crazy frame rates to be able to make it feel good. That's really taxing, and it's insane that you can even get that experience on the Switch or the Quest 1 and the PlayStation and stuff. But those big open world games that we all want, they're not easy to do.
No, and you're absolutely right. But it's kind of like we're getting there. Is kind of where I was going with that. Like you say, these bite-sized VR experiences. This is it's gonna, there's nothing on VR other than like throwing simulators or job simulators, that kind of thing. And it's not the case at all. There are titles that you could spend literally hundreds of hours in and never experience the entirety of that game. They're out there. They're available now, and we're only going to get more. At least that's the hope. I'm not sure what's on the horizon, I guess, as far as grand titles like that, but even smaller titles. I mean, that's not to say everyone. I was sick of open world games. Like I said, in 2016, I was getting pretty tired of them. But there's tons of other smaller experiences. Like there's at this point in time now in 2020, there is something for everybody in VR. They're, it's not just archery games from 2016 or like horror games that were kind of a big thing. They're obviously they're still available, but we've seen the Astrobots, the golfing games have come out. Ace Combat, it's only 3 missions in flight, but it's some of the most mind-blowing stuff you'll ever experience. If you ever get sick, Ace Combat's gonna make you do it, but if you can handle it, man, I was Maverick from Top Gun. Straight up, I'm shooting other guys. I have my hose controller with me, and nothing compares to that I've played yet.
I had Highway to the Danger Zone actually playing in the background, and a stupid ass smile on my face. That feeling of the cockpit looked so good, and that feeling of blasting up through the clouds, and then the ice formed on your on your windshield as you broke through the clouds and hit the sun, and it started to defrost again, and you're like and then I literally talking about Maverick. I remember going up to a ship and going inverted on him, and like looking down and looking up at him and being like this. It was just like I was like, check. It's like childhood bucket list. There we go.
And there are so many moments like that now. Like I said, I mean, Detached is another one that me and you, I think, love more than most of the internet. Where the second you Detached, for the people that don't know, you basically play as like an astronaut in space. But you have little jets you can propel yourself through there. You have to like go to asteroids and fix stuff.
You're basically spacewalking, but you can turn it on so that it has like
full immersion,
100% accuracy, spinning on all axes, with actual physics and gravity in effect. And when you we were talking about like just jumping,
I laughed.
just pushing off of the first space platform, and I had a bit of a spin on me, and I remember just going, I actually recorded my reaction for my review. I managed to capture me going, holy shit. And I was just like, and you could see the helmet too, so you had that feeling of like being inside the helmet. And that's something VR does that no type of gaming can do, is when you have those moments of being in a cockpit or being in a helmet.
Dude, Farpoint.
Yeah.
Like, tell me you weren't blown away with I'm assuming you played with the aim controller the first time you played? Oh my God. Oh my God. Like,
pulling behind your back.
Gun,
yeah.
And then, like I said, like when I pulled it up, I was holding it like a shooter. And I realized there was laser sights. And I was like, I was lining up the sights with my controller. I was like, this is... Like, how can I go back to playing Halo?
Yeah.
How can I go back to
playing
Halo?
Screw every first-person shooter ever.
Basically, it's insane. Like, that was an absolute... I was like, well, like, this just killed an entire genre for me.
Well, when Firewall came out, Firewall Zero on the PSVR, I actually did a video that was 10 reasons why it's better than Rainbow Six. And I love Rainbow Six. That's my jam, is like those strategy-based FPSs. And I remember I got so many comments from butthurt flat screen gamers who were like, all of your reasons were because it's VR. I'm like, yeah. They're like, well, that's bullshit. I'm like, no, it's not. I'm like, that was my point. My point is that all of these reasons that it's better are things that Ubisoft can't just patch into Rainbow Six. Like, it's not, these are fundamental things like blind fire, looking down sights, actual aiming skill, actual reaction times. It's no longer just a little Twitch shooter where how fast and how accurate can you flick your thumb. No, you start walking through levels where if you don't have your gun at the ready, you're toast. Like in real life.
That's also why I like VR, because as I age out of flat gaming, I'm still competitive in VR gaming. But it's more, like I say, in Space Junkies, it's a more fair playing field when you're playing against others and their physicality. It's like I say, it's not how fast you can how you can twitch your controller or mod. You can mod a PC side of things. You can mod stuff. Like in VR, every multiplayer game, like first person shooter, at least anyways, it's about you. It's about your physicality. You, like I said, if you peek your head around a corner, you're getting shot if you're not aware. It's that kind of physicality, that presence in a game that just gets amplified.
I played Contractors last night, and I had a moment, and I haven't had a chance to really play multiplayer games much outside of reviewing. And I remember coming around a corner at a guy, and both of us realized we hadn't chambered, or we were out of ammo. And it was this moment of us both. You could see both of us like fumbling and trying to get it in and trying to chamber it and try to get the gun up. It's like fuck, damn, ah! And it was like that. that real world, like how smooth are you at? You have to learn the gun. You have to learn the gun's idiosyncrasies. Like the better shooters, like say Onward, if you have an AK, you can actually bang the clip out with the new clip, because they don't auto eject. So you can like start to get good at banging that out and clacking in and bam, chambering that round. How quickly can you drop your primary and get to your secondary? You literally have to grab the grenade. You have to pull the pin. You have to work on your throwing arm. These are all real things.
You can rest your weapons on like for more stability. Firewall. I remember that you can rest your gun on a box or whatever, and that reduces the recoil. Now it's more stable. It's that kind of stuff that they can put that in a flat game, but until you can feel that in VR, it's not the same thing. It's not press X to mount gun as opposed to just physically mounting your gun. It's next level.
I was playing Onward, which was one of the first games I jumped into when I got onto PC. So as a side note, my personal journey was kind of PSVR for years. Then all of a sudden, in one swoop, I basically got a Quest and a PC, because I wanted to cover more, and also because I needed it for the editing on the channel. So it was kind of, I jumped into the bigger pool of VR, and I was playing Onward. And for those of you who don't know, Onward's a hardcore military sim. So like there's no crouch button. If you want to crouch, you crouch. If you drop your gun, you better get down and pick it up. And so it's very much based on your actual like movement of your body. And so I decided I was going to try a sniper class. So I jumped in, and I was like, I had this massive sniper rifle, and I was up on this hill. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna set up my office here. And so I get down, and as I literally crawled onto my floor. So I'm laying on that mat behind me there, and I'm stretched out. I got my hands out. I'm looking down the scopes, and they start coming at me. And I'm like, and I fire off my rounds. I've got my tripod up, so I'm like basically set up shop, and I've been crawling forward trying to get a better angle on them. And I ran out of ammo. Fuck, I need ammo. Well, my ammo's on the front of me. So I'm rolling over onto my back to be able to get my ammo pouch on my waist, and I'm taking clips, and I'm throwing a couple clips out next to me. I'm like, okay, back onto my front. I'm like, oh my god, and I'm back, and at this point, they're already charging up the hill, and there's shots buzzing by my head. I'm like, fuck, Kate, no time to snipe, and I jump up to grab my secondary handgun to try to save my ass, and I didn't realize that I'd crawled underneath my desk. And I jump up onto my feet, and I lift the whole desk up, just about destroying my new gaming PC. But it was that level of immersion, like I just forgot entirely that I was in my like little VR office here.
I've punched so many things, and I'm pretty good as far as like, I learned on the PlayStation, like, don't move your feet. And there's a little bit of it's a smaller tracked area, but I basically kind of taught myself like to use the buttons to turn, do that stuff. But there are games out there, boxing games are Creed and the other ones where, like, when you're in there, when you're play Creed's if you actually circle your opponent, man, like, tell me you can use the turn button. No, you are in the spur moment, you are turning. I've never broken anything vital, but I have smacked my controller so hard where I'm like, thank God that didn't break. But at the same time, I'm like, I was so into it. I was there. I'm punching this dude in the face, and I feel it. Every time I hit him, I get that little feedback there from the controller, and it feels amazing. And like I said, you mentioned shooters, racing games. Still, you still want to get a wheel, and have that something with feedback, that force feedback.
Yeah.
Play Dirt. Oh my god!
Best arcade game you've ever played. That's why arcades are dying, because someone could come into my basement and have their mind absolutely destroyed. Like, I have a racing seat with butt kickers in it, so it's next level like immersion if you're a giant child man like I am. I mean, I don't, Ryan, if you ever saw the video I did, I took Onward on the Quest out to a arena, like a field basically. I turned off the perimeter, which you can do in the developer settings, everybody. And in that game, like, I started running through the levels. I was actually like chugging along and laying down and pulling, and taking a knee and like hiding around walls and doing it all in this giant open field. First of all, tripped me right the fuck out. because like even just like getting up on a curb on the street, I'd be like, because it was instinct. It was starting to really, for a VR veteran, it was really messing with my sense of reality
Oh
because
yeah.
it was almost like my brain had gotten, I don't get VR sickness. My brain got so used to going, this is VR. We're just going to let you have this one and ignore the sensations. All of a sudden, I threw that in and I was like, this is insane. Like, you see videos of guys playing arenas in like certain arcades and such. But you made me think of it because I was running around and my wife was videotaping me and she wasn't paying attention. And because she was supposed to be my
Don't hit that pole.
she was supposed to be my spotter, and I ran full bore in with my rifle into the wall of a skating rink. And I remember just being pissed. And I'm like, what the hell, honey? Ah! And I'm looking around and I'm frustrated because I can't find my rifle. And I'm walking around this arena trying to find my gun because I dropped it. I realized that actually broke my controller, which I've done 2 other times now.
Nice.
So yes, the immersion sometimes hurts the pocketbook, but
It's worth it.
very, very, very cool shit. Yeah, just next level stuff. And so, I mean, that's kind of where we're at now with VR. I mean, with titles like the PC is still going to be where I think a lot of these games are being.
I think the innovation right now is going to be on PC, I think, is what we're kind of talking. You were still getting games on the other headsets, but I think PC has the power to do more.
Well, yeah, there's innovation, and there's. I think you're right about the fact that.
Yeah, innovation wasn't the right word.
But like VR is going to reach for the stars on PC because it's got the horsepower. And if anyone asks me like my mind-blowing VR experiences in the last year, if it was last year, you'd hear me start saying things like Wipeout, things that are on the PSVR. But as we've moved into the next gen, it's like Asgard's Wrath, Boneworks, Half-Life Alyx, Project Cars 2 on PC, Star Wars Squadrons, games like this that are
so good,
especially on the PC. Look at that extra horsepower. It's just like, whoo. Boneworks is an example of a game that's pushing boundaries. The physics, when you jump, you actually do this little crouch thing, which just blows my mind. And that's on the PC. Half-Life Alyx, I don't actually think it necessarily deserves these Game of the Year awards because it's still...
I agree.
It's pretty simplistic in what it's doing. It's very polished. But where I do believe it does get that Game of the Year comparisons is that Half-Life Alyx did something that no other title, I think, with the exception of maybe Asgard's Wrath and a few others, is it actually looked like a AAA title in VR.
That's definitely where VR is lacking. Not to say it's not there, but like you said, these are smaller teams that are making these games for the most part, and that's also changing as well. But with Steam or Valve, sorry, when they commit to a project, they commit full bore, and you can tell it with Alyx. There are so many stunning set pieces in that game. It's crazy. I remember looking up that giant ship you have to go onto towards the latter half of the game and just seeing it. Where you are in the city, you see this thing in the distance floating on these cables, and it's just the lighting, everything there. This is I cannot wait till more games reach for this kind of fidelity because it's amazing.
Like it would get nominated for graphics if it was a flat game. That's what I'm getting at.
That's why on multiple forums I've been on, like, Half-Life Alyx Game of the Year, and it even won from GameSpot and a few others, and well deserved. I'm not going to say Steam didn't deserve or Valve didn't deserve that. It's a phenomenal game, but for me as a obsessed VR fan, it didn't quite do VR quite right. Like to jump, you have to you just use your thumbstick to make a hologram of your feet to move up or down things.
As much as I love it, here's the question though that I pose to you. If you put the flat version of that game out, which a lot of people, Half-Life fans, hope they would it still be a really good game? I'd say no, because it's still very much contingent on, like, you only get 5 guys coming at you, and it's hard because you're manually reloading and you're trying to grab them, and it's stressful as hell. But if all of a sudden you took that into your normal Twitch shooting controller, it's very linear. It's very linear. It's very narrow. It is still very much based around the fact that you're in VR, and so it still has that baby's first steps feel in VR slightly. It just does it really, really well.
Oh, it's probably the best version of that what you just described. It's the best one. Yeah.
So, like Boneworks, I've heard rumblings that I can't remember the name of the company now. They approached Valve to use their engine as the Half-Life game. So there's a reason it looks Half-Life-y. It pushes a lot more boundaries than Half-Life did. Asgard's Wrath, I would say, probably deserves Game of the Year, I think. Because it gives AAA games a run for their money on gameplay.
Came out last year, though, so what are you talking about here?
Did it really?
Yeah.
Are you sure about that?
It was my favorite VR game of last year, so I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay. Well, then, okay. See, this is my problem. I'm late to the game. Ryan's been in PC for way longer than I have, right?
Not that much longer. There are still gems out there I'm missing, and I can't wait to experience them because these are games that people have talked about. That I'm stoked because, like I said, when you find those VR moments, you can't. It's your first time doing whatever. You can't repeat that. It doesn't matter whether it's your first time riding a roller coaster in real life or in VR. It's these firsts where once you do them, it's mind blowing. Yeah. And I'm still chasing those, man. They happen less and less now because I'm obviously experiencing more and more and more. But they still, when they happen, man, I'm just. My head explodes. I love it.
I tried Microsoft Flight Simulator, and it's got issues. It needs to be patched. But I did. This is starting to. This is getting into the upper echelon of being able to have the horsepower and everything. But I was on the G2, the Reverb, running Flight Simulator, and I was like, "Holy shit! That's Edmonton. Like I could go crash into Ryan's front door right now. Like
nice."
But it was like getting into that photoreal category in VR, which some games like Project Cars 2 and stuff have started to dabble in, where you're like, this is pretty freaking, like the way the sun's starting to come off and the reflections and the resolution and the draw distance. It's getting pretty crazy, and now we're seeing things like cyber shoes and there's that other thing that I can never think of. It's like a movement. It's a full motion pod that'll turn with you and stuff. There's some crazy shit coming to the homes, gun stocks, obviously, HOTAS sticks,
3D rudders, steering wheels. I mean, we have there's so many peripherals, even just your haptic vest.
Oh, that's probably one of the big ones. Yeah,
huge. I actually don't have a haptic vest yet.
Either do I
need to get one, but those peripherals just mean more when you're in VR because, like I said, you can wear a haptic vest and play Call of Duty and poop, your thing vibrates, but when you're in the game, it just changes. It changes how you interpret those same signals. As silly as that sounds, like in VR, you're in VR. You can't see the world around you. You can't see your couch. You can't see your living room. All you can see is guys shooting at you or whatever. And it's just next level. Like I said, there's, and even the amount of headsets that are coming out now, like the Reverb just released, obviously, to mixed reviews. But there's still, it's this pushing tech, and even comparing VR now to where VR was even 4 years ago, for me it's almost night and day. The industry is growing so fast and expanding. Just it's finding itself so quickly. The Quest 2, it's an amazing piece. It's a stunning piece of tech. We've talked about before on this podcast. What some of the things it can do, even though it's all built in the headset. It's mind-blowing, and I recommend anybody pick it up because it's true VR at a good price, and it still delivers. Those wow moments are available, especially if you have a PC and stuff as well. But
VR's holdbacks had always been like, if people ask, it's like, okay, well, VR sickness, price, wires, those were barriers to entry.
Shut up, people! You're done now.
Content, those are all things, and it's like, the Quest 2 might not have the horsepower, but it's getting close to 4K displays now, which was also an expectations thing that was hurting it. People say, it's blurry. So it's wireless. The price is starting to get to a point where it's like, like $400, and it's like, there's no console, there's no PC. Here you go. Like one-to-one tracking, no camera setups. So it's really easy to just pick up and play. And the content's starting to get there, like, Pop 1, Contractors, a lot of like big VR titles like Super Hot and Beat Saber and Pistol Whip and all those things that are coming over. I think the Quest is still lacking those meaty titles, but it does have It does have Saints and Sinners, and it's VR is going to the masses now. Like, and then as we round out the end of this show, it's kind of like, I think we can't not look to the future. Like you just said perfectly, VR is moving so fast.
Insane. It's absolutely
in the
insane.
last year alone. In the last year, we've seen, like 2 years, let's say, we've seen wireless VR go mainstream. We've seen the visuals in standalone get pretty impressive. We've seen inside-out tracking. It's just, it's crazy.
The Quest tracks your hand. You can do this.
Yeah.
And you can't see it if you're listening, but you can like move your fingers, and the Quest 2 can track your hand. Now that's more application than game based, but there's still games that use that. It tracks your hand. It's all built in the headset. Like where this tech is going is it's crazy. It's absolutely mind-boggling to even think 2 years down the road what we're going to be playing. Honestly, wow. I couldn't guess.
I could guess. I think the big thing, the big
guess.
The big jump's going to be, and I have a feeling we might even see the next PSVR jump into this. This maybe one of the first ones is with eye tracking, foveated rendering, and there's another name for it. It's another type of it's another type of, and it's a more advanced version of foveated rendering where it only renders what you can see, and you can't trick it because it's tracking your eyes, and therefore, especially for standalone headsets, the required horsepower is cut so much drastically. That's bad English, but it's cut so drastically back that the possibilities become freaky about what, like, they talk about PC graphics and standalone headsets like sooner than we might think, and it's not a matter of getting the headsets up to PC power. It's more getting the requirements for that level of gaming to come down, and we're seeing that with the new Unreal Engine 5 too, which is also streaming in real time off of SSDs, and it's just crazy shit that's coming at us. That's unbelievable. But I mean, the other thing about VR that we haven't really talked on is, like, office applications. Like, people are starting to do there's virtual offices that show your keyboard so you can just work in VR with multiple screens and conference callings maybe at the same time.
Even just the social aspect of visiting your friends in VR. And I know a lot of the games aren't quite there yet. I know Facebook, what's it called? Horizons is trying to do the next big thing here.
VR chat. I finally jumped into VR chat.
I haven't yet.
I got coerced into it with a group of people, and I mean, it can feel like a little bit of a squeaker acid trip of a party sometimes. But if you're with a bunch of friends and you start jumping in, like, I mean, there's people that have designed entire suits. Like, I walked around. I was an Ecto-1 from Ghostbusters, and I was literally like rolling around as Ecto-1. Like, it's pretty crazy shit. But like last year, I'm a metalhead, and I went and I watched Killswitch Engage live in VR, and it was mind-blowing. It rivals some of the things we've talked about, because as a concert goer my entire life, I was literally sitting pre-show on a camera that was at the back of the crowd, and I was just sitting there in the crowd while everyone's like, oh goddamn, when are they going to start? And I was like, yeah, when are they going to start, man? And the lights went down, and I was like, oh yeah, here we go. And everyone else was like, woo. It was a full house too. It was in the House of Blues. And then once the show started, I could switch camera angles, and it was good quality, and I was on stage. I had easily the best seat in the house. Like, they came up, and like one time he came up and he played guitar around the camera, and I'm looking down at the guitar.
That's awesome.
And then they come up and scream in the camera, and it was like mind-blowing. And like, there've been talks about, well, a lot of people will just have if they're religious, they'll have Sunday Mass at the Vatican. They're thinking of putting a camera up there.
Me and you were just talking about watching a movie together in big screen. Like, you can sit down in your VR headset, and in VR you're beside your buddy watching a movie together. Like, these are things that I think are going to really help push VR forward, especially during these weird COVID times. I'm not sure when this is all going to end, but these are now options, right? Like, you don't have to go to the theater to go to a theater. Like, this is VR is like, honestly, like, even like classrooms. You know what I'm talking about? Like, if COVID would have happened like 5 years from now, I'm pretty sure VR would have been like the option for classrooms. Like, all right, everyone gets in a virtual headset and we just straight up Ready Player One this. Yeah. And it makes perfect sense to have your teacher. Like, it makes perfect sense to do that. I mean, right now, but the tech isn't quite there. But personally, I think the tech is there. It's just, it's not out there enough.
It's a feasibility and a price
Yeah.
thing still. But can you imagine, like, one of my best friend's wives is a school teacher, and she's like, online teaching is very hard. It's hard to keep young kids' attention and to keep them on task and see what they're doing. And how if a teacher could actually have a virtual classroom and be like, Ryan, turn your head around.
Yeah.
I'm over here.
I can tell you're sleeping. Your head's been looking up for 10 minutes.
You know, like, I mean, and I look at some like friendships like Jason from the VR chat channel and you. I mean, we have the advantage of being close to each other in real life, but the fact is, I didn't see you for 2 years. And when we first met, I told you it was kind of trippy. I was like, I'm not used to this. Like, it was like, where's my VR, Ryan? Like, it's an odd thing, but it's also amazing that you can have that like relationship. You know, and for a lot of people that are more social than I am, it's nightly get-togethers, like watching TV shows, entire TV shows in big screen, and hanging out.
Even going back to gaming, like we all played Albo together or playing Rush VR together. Like there's 8 of us all there, and we all know each other
all
through
over
various
the world.
means. And we're all playing this game. We can see each other's avatars. It's just like, you know, we can wave like, "Hey, what's going on, Shug?" And Shug can wave back. Like this is, it's next level. It goes beyond, you know, Facebook and Skype.
Well, here's an example of you're talking about Facebook and Skype. It's all these things coming together. The VR chat channel did a release party for Pixel Rip 1995, and after they did like we did an interview with all the developers, which was I hosted and was like kind of trippy. We went into a party, and they had a live party. We streamed it. They had a live DJ come in who they actually had DJing in Rec Room. He had his own DJ booth and everything. They had lights and they had a dance floor. And there were people from the US, from the UK. They had people from Brazil, Canada, and all of them were on the dance floor chatting and dancing with you know, localized audio. So it actually had like actual spatial audio going on. They were yelling at each other and laughing. And you saw the girls all dancing in a circle like in real life. And it was so crazy. So trippy that there was a live DJ in the US and people from Brazil interacting. They're like, yeah, it's 8 a.m. in the morning. Woo! That's crazy.
This is a first gen social VR app. This thing came out 2017, I think, was when Rec Room dropped. And just like I said, seeing the leaps and bounds, you know, this and VR chat are the big two, with Horizons around the corner. But you know, whatever the next big leap is, when you get that fidelity, I mean, you can find videos of like Facebook tracking your face in VR, where it actually you can scan your face and then it puts your real avatar. Now that's just like, you know, that's way off in the distance as far as tech goes, but they're working on it. They're already working on it now.
I've heard that like some of the next headsets, this is not even next gen. There's an advanced version of the Reverb G2. I can't remember what they call it, but it talked about having a camera that actually faced in, so it would capture facial expressions.
And you said you can find, like I said, Facebook did posted some videos. It was amazing to see. It was capturing all their face, like they were smiling and frowning and making weird faces, and it was being represented in VR flawlessly. And like I said, that's obviously a closed thing, but man, like once we're there, like, you know, Ready Player One, I love Ready Player One. I love the book. The film I still like. It's not as good as the book, but that's my fantasy. Ready Player One is like the fantasy of VR, where you can basically go into VR and do anything.
And VR chat was I was like, I'm not social, but this is insane. Like,
yeah,
I switched into a Predator costume, and all of a sudden, I was a full-size Predator. Like, and I was interacting with like Slimers from the Ghostbusters and Spider-Man, and it looked good.
I gotta play that game. I gotta get into it. It's my social awkwardness.
Exactly, and it is what it is. But I mean, you know, and then again, talking about the future at a VR conference last year, I believe there was a tech company there that was showing. It was very basic visuals, but they were showing their AI software for NPCs of them actually, the AI actually knowing you were in their space. Now this would work in flat games too, but in VR, which people said it was really trippy. That like you got in their face and they were like, "Oh, hey, man." Like, whoa.
That's awesome.
And like if you hit them, they reacted. If you smiled at them, this is where that starts to come in. That the AI was reacting to your body language. That's something that's only a VR thing. Your body language is how they are going to react to you in a meaningful and real way. You start taking that stuff and you start throwing that into the other things we've been talking about, and
It's crazy.
we're
we're getting Black Mirror-y a bit, but hey,
well,
it's still
we're starting to get into a holodeck.
And like I said, and I'm still on board for that, man. I mean, as addicted as I am into this stuff, I still don't, I'm not in here 24/7, just sweating bullets, eating in VR and stuff. But
No.
it's how I consume media now. I mean, I still watch movies on TV, I guess, but I've definitely watched VR films, and I've watched films in VR that aren't VR. Like I say, it comes down to like the couch experience, and you still have a headset on your head. There's still definitely some things that boundaries that VR has to bound to surpass, get through, whatever I'm trying to say here. But it's here, man. It's now, and like I think I could honestly talk about why I love VR forever. This could be a 10-hour broadcast, and I still wouldn't be done.
Well, we could call this part 1 of 2, with part 2 to follow up at some unannounced time, and it probably
why we still fucking love VR.
Yeah. Well, we should wrap things up only because we're after our hour long, and my headset's about to die. So, anything that you wanted to close with?
Yeah, for those of you listening, I'm Ryan from the VR Grid. You can visit my YouTube channel, The VR Grid, or find my website, thevrgrid.com, or on social media, where guess what? I'm known as The VR Grid. So just at me. You can't find me, or you can't miss me. If you're looking for me, I'm there. Shug, what about yourself?
I'm Chris at Shughead Gaming on YouTube. You can also check out the Discord for Shughead Gaming. We've got over 1,000 VR peeps in there, and we're starting to build a community, so that's all fun. You can find us, both of us, also on Twitter. Leave us.
And if you're watching this, this is an audio podcast. If you guys love podcasts, just finding us on your favorite podcast app and just hitting that subscribe or like button, that does us huge. We're getting this thing off the ground. Any help is appreciated, and I think it's awesome whether you listen or watch us. So why not do both, right?
Please share it around, because we're just trying this out. We're going to have these conversations regardless, so we figured we might as well throw cameras in our face.
Plus we know we're good.
Yeah, we know our shit. We're really full of ourselves, too. Yeah, guys, leave some notes in the comments. We love to talk VR. That's why we both got into it, too. So, let me know your favorite VR moments, and if you want to see future conversations on the channel, or just future things to see added to, I guess not the channel, but to the show, let us know. It's fun. And we appreciate you guys coming along for the ride with us. So, on that note, I will sign off. We are recording this on December 29th. So, I'll see you guys in 2021.
Ooh, me too.
Later, guys.
See y'all.